What's up guys, this is Darkbblue, a gamer who loves Souls-like games, looter games, and every game that involves build making. I've seen many people talking about damage reduction builds lately. It's really making me, who haven't played at Epoch difficulty, really nervous. Seems as if it's the only way to survive the Epoch. So I decided to check how damage reduction works and if damage reduction builds are really necessary. In this video, I will first tell you the true function of damage reduction, then analyze if you should use restriction cord, and in the end provide two different damage reduction builds with different resources put into stacking damage reduction. So don't forget to like and subscribe. Now let's dive right into it. So first, how does damage reduction work? I did a test with the help of this kind-faced soldier at veteran difficulty. First, you should know that there are in fact three types of reduction: armor reduction, resistance reduction, and the very DR reduction we are most interested in. For a regular physical attack, both armor reduction and DR reduction will protect you. Let's say the original damage is 100. Armor reduction reduces damage to 90% and DR reduces to 80%. Then the overall effect is 90% multiplies 80%, and we got 72 damage. Then let's talk about armor reduction. You have raw armor values which are converted to the claimed armor reduction. The more armor you have, it's harder to get more armor reduction gain. Strangely, the claimed armor reduction is different from the actual reduction. When the claim reduction is low, let's say less than 55%, the actual one is like 2 to 3 digits higher than the claimed one. But when you have higher claim reduction, the actual one will be lower than it. For example, 65% claim reduction is 60% actual reduction, and 80% claimed one is 64% actual reduction. Surely it's strange, but we have something even stranger. The DR reduction, its actual effect is again different from the claimed effect. Let the claimed value be X, then the actual damage reduction is calculated by this function. As you can see, it's convex, so the more DR you have, the harder it is to gain the same amount of actual reduction. To be honest, I don't know why the whole thing works like this. It's meaningless to have a totally different function than what's shown to players. But whatever, let's move on and analyze restriction cord. To start with, let's see how we can stack up DR reduction. There are some gears that work at any condition. 10 from bark skin, 5 from relic fragment, 5 from lithic signet, and 15 from engineer. However, they give you only 35 DR at most, and all other gears work under certain conditions. Usually that condition is when you are below certain health or being active for some time. The restriction cord gives you 10 DR and prevents your health from being held over 50%. This means now it's easier to trigger gears that work only at low health. For example, hardened coil and rust heirloom give you 26 DR at half health, and by removing a little more health you can trigger amber moonstone and get 25 DR. So in summary, restriction cord gives you an opportunity to reach higher DR, while without it you are restricted to 35 DR. However, you have to make full use of this opportunity, otherwise you take more damage than not using restriction cord at all. So let's see an example. I assume 3 settings. In the first one, you don't use restriction cord and put only a few resources into stacking DR. In the second one, you use restriction cord but also refuse to put more resources. And in the last one, of course, you reach as high DR as possible. So in the first setting, you have 10 from bark skin and 5 from relic fragment, and 5 from Lithic Signet, 20 in total. Since having 15 from Engineer means your archetype choice is restricted, so I don't count it in. Then it's 65% of the raw damage you take. In the second setting, we have 10 from Bark Skin, 5 from Relic Fragment, 10 from Restriction Cord, and 15 from Hardened Coil. 40 in total. Now it's 35% of raw damage. However, you only have half of the max health, so all damage can be seen as being doubled. Then we have 70% of the raw damage. In the third setting, of course, you can reach more than 100 DR and become truly invulnerable. Now we can conclude, although Restriction Cord makes it possible to reach max DR, it's not a good idea to use it while not making full efforts to stack up DR. And if you don't want to spend too many accessory slots on DR, it's better not to use Restriction Cord at all. So my final suggestion for DR, you can either give up Restriction Cord and have only the most basic 20 DR, or use Restriction Cord and stack up as much DR as you can. But don't use Restriction Cord while not having enough DR. Next, it's time for the 2 damage reduction builds I propose. Please note that they are both designed for APOC. If you are playing at lower difficulties, I think 10 DR from Bark Skin trait is already enough. First, a low resource build where you don't use Restriction Cord. We have 10 from Bark Skin, 5 from Relic Fragment, and 5 from Lithic Signet, and that's 20 in sum. This whole build takes only 1 fragment slot and 1 ring slot, which is not too much. Of course, you can use Hardened Coil in addition to have at most another 15 DR. The advantage of this build is that it doesn't use too many accessory slots. My personal preference is to have 1 damage ring, 2 mod power or skill cooldown rings, and 1 utility ring like movement speed. Among them all, the most important are mod power or skill cooldown rings, as they determine whether the mod or skill rotation works normally. So when using this low resource build, I can replace the damage ring and the utility ring with Lithic Signet and Hardened Coil without damaging whatever build I originally want to play. Based on these gears, 20 DR is actually pretty protective. I can take 3 hits before getting killed. Well, I've compared it with my experience in Dark Souls 3 and Bloodborne, and I think as a Souls player, I can accept taking 3 hits before killed. However, you can do more with this build to release its damage reduction potential. With Arcane Skill 1, Alchemy Skill 1, and Crystal Heart, you can become invulnerable for a short time. I admit that this time is really short, but it's enough for many things. As for the high resource build, use 10 from Bark Skin, 5 from Relic Fragment, 10 from Restriction Cord, 15 from Hardened Coils, 11 from Rusted Heirloom, 25 from Amber Moonstone, and 15 from Engineer. So that's 91 DR reduction that you have all the time. Then you have 3 choices. First one, use Alchemist Skill 1 and Confidence Booster to reach over 100 reduction. Second one, use Indignant Fetish to become invulnerable after getting hit. And third one, use Reprogrammed Heart along with Effigy Pendant to reach 100 reduction, and in this way you only need to use Relic once a while. As you can see, the 2 builds have different advantages. Low resource one won't damage the normal rotation of your build, while the high resources one gives you the strongest protection. If you like my story and if you want to draw me into depth of games, just like and subscribe. Thanks for watching, see you around.